good to not mute if you have questions to ask or comments to make. We want it to be more interactive. And that was one of the purposes of using Zoom, is so that it's more interactive than, say, on Facebook or on YouTube. Zoom is more interactive. So we want it that way. And that is one of the advantages of using Zoom. So, feel free to ask questions, make comments, As I said, I'm not so able to see what is typed out. The screen is a little bit further away. But so you can just speak and ask questions. One question that came up during the break, someone messaged me and said, when doing the part of receiving the 4 empowerments in the Guru Puja text, do you see the 4 lights all coming to you all at the same time or one by one? And my answer is that, well, when you receive the 4 empowerments, in front of a Vajra master, does it happen one by one or all 4 at the same time? So basically, your receiving of the 4 empowerments now is the same process as you would receive it in front of a Vajra master in a much longer ritual. So then, in other words, well, sequentially, one by one. First forehead, then throat, then heart, then navel. But again, if you are very advanced, very comfortable with this visualization, then what is to say? What is to stop you from receiving 4 empowerments all at the same time? It's also possible. None of this is so rigid, So the questioner also said, oh, I think I've been doing this wrong all this while. And my response would be, not just being nice, I'm not really known to be nice, Actually, let's put it this way. I'm nicer to, I'm nicer to people who don't really, that I don't have much investment in. I'm Asian after all, Very good at being nice, I'm usually just nice to people that don't matter much. So anyway, I said, no, it's not doing it wrong. It's really, this is part of the path. You take the instructions from a teacher that you feel comfortable and is qualified to guide you. But we take instructions to whatever degree that we're able to take. Then we go with it. We go with it and we do the practice. We do the practice. We do the practice. And when the time is right, if there's something that is not exactly how it should be done, it becomes obvious. And then you will have this aha moment. So, and that is very valuable, having this aha moment. Because then from your own experience, you have clarified how this works. In a way, if you heard everything exactly as it was said from the beginning, maybe then there's no more aha to discover. But the path is something that we have to discover. So yes, of course, conventionally speaking, you can say, I've done it wrong. But let me say this, as long as you do not separate yourself from guidance, that's why there are these prayers, may I never be separated from the Guru. So as long as we are never separated, as long as we don't cut our connection to guidance, to gurus, then all the mistakes that we make along the way, they are part of growing on the path. With Milarepa, even when Marpa has passed away, no longer physical, available and present, because his devotion was so strong, he could still get guidance from Marpa. So not to be separated, we make prayers like that. May I not be separated from the Guru. So as long as we're not separated, then, even so-called mistakes or wrong way of doing this or that becomes an fuel for wisdom to blaze strongly. Anyway, this morning, as I was doing Guru Puja all together with all of you and thinking how fortunate we are, how blessed we are with technology and what technology is making possible. But technology cuts both sides, right? On the other side, there's also a lot of infectious information coming in through technology. My advice, I keep saying, is don't pay attention to those things. Take the precautions, stay at home, don't cause suffering for others, all of that. After you have done all those things, minimize your daily intake of any kind of news. Jokingly on Facebook, I posted something that seemed to have caught on among some friends in Guatemala, but not with others. So I posted a Vajrayana nerd's guide to the 3 protections: outer, inner, secret. Outer, inner, secret protections for survival, I call it that. I said outer, here, I'll read it. So, so I said, outer, inner, and secret quarantine for survival. Outer quarantine, stay home, practice friendly social distancing, minimum 6 feet distance when shopping food and medicine. Inner quarantine, stop scrolling Facebook for news, delete WhatsApp group messages without reading them. Without reading them, okay? If they're group messages, basically useless. And then secret quarantine, remember Mark Twain's pith instruction, which is, I'm an old man and have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened. Most of them never happened. So it's all, we play out all these troubles, all these scenarios in our mind, Most of them never happened. So that's the outer and inner and secret quarantine, how to protect ourselves. Then for fun, this is my godkid's mother, Kate, introduced me to this. If you go to Google and you do a Google of image, Google, you Google this, your name, just your first name. So I put Hans and then apocalypse costume and do a search. So the very first image that comes up, you post that image. That's your apocalypse costume. So friends in Guatemala saw this and started having their own versions following this game. It's something fun to do. If you're going to be, which we should, because in a way, this allows us to keep in touch with each other. So So anyway, sorry, lots of messages coming in. One message is I want to ask that specifically make prayers for this one person, Gustavo. Gustavo is the head of the Drikung Center in Guayaquil, Ecuador. He has an underlying condition. He's an older person. He has an underlying condition, and now it seems like all the signs seems to be pointing to that he caught the virus. So Gustavo is his name. Let me find a picture. Then again, Jasper, I'm going to send it to you if you can share it in the group. So yeah, I think, we are going to be seeing more and more of people that we know, things like that. But again, it's like this is the nature of samsara. We should not be, all that surprised. Okay, now that I'm looking for a picture, it is not turning up so easily. Anyway, as I continue to look for a picture, I was saying, with technology, it is so amazing that we are able to continue or to do this program and to meet together. More especially now, we need to be connected. But again, like in samsara, right? We can be connected to create more suffering, or we can be connected to create more happiness. So we have to be skillful in how we handle being connected. So we have to be very skillful. So anyway, this morning as I was looking at all these connections, and then I look around, what's in front of me here, then I see, oh wow, all these connections. So for example, I look, and I this cloth that I used to cover my bell and vajra and damaru. This cloth, it was accidentally given to me. It used to belong to His Holiness, that he used to cover his ritual implements. Accidentally given to me because one time when he was here and then he left, this was left here. So of course I tried to give it back, and he said, no, you just keep it. So I see this here, yeah. Then I see this wooden purba, given to me by a Dharma sibling, a Dharma brother in Malaysia. I see the base. The base is from Leonard in Malaysia. Then I look around, this T-shirt, and most of the shirts that I'm wearing, Ellen is the one in Indonesia. And this tanga of Vajrayogini is Ellen, and with Lama Ringzin in Nepal, made this, and Ellen made and gave it to me as well. And then, these flowers, Laura Russell came by yesterday during her walk and left them here for me. I am drinking out of my now favorite coffee mug from Mexico, from Omar. By the way, I have started getting very creative with sweetening my coffee, since I'm avoiding, sugar or even honey and things like that. So I know this sounds disgusting, but you should give it a try. If you want to find a way to sweeten your coffee, you blend your coffee with a banana. Now I have like a weird but coffee smoothie banana. And yeah, so many different things, point is like, when this is a good time to slow down and to pay attention to all these things around you, especially even like our Dharma objects, pay attention to these things around us and see, all the different places that they came from, how they came to you and all of that. And just, appreciate, how we are all connected, all the interdependencies that have come together for all these things that we are using, that we have here. So, it's a time to really slow down, pay attention. Okay, so we continue in our long-term project of learning about Jigten Sumgon's teachings, the unique teachings of Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon, by anchoring our study on this book. So this is the book. It's called The Buddha's Single Intention. I've said a few times, if I'm going to be shipwrecked in some island, there's only me. I'm very certain this is the book that I will have with me. If I can only choose one book, this is the book that I will have with me, The Buddha's Single Intention. Then, of course, if I can get more books with me, then Shantideva's Bodhicayavatara is definitely another one. And the Songs of Milarepa is another one. So anyway, now we're going to start studying this book. Oh, good. Ellen just turned up again. Good. She didn't hear what I said earlier. So less pride for her. That is good. So the screenshots, the pictures that I took, we are now in this section. We're still in the introduction section of this book. And after the author of this book, Professor Sobish, after talking about some general things about this, what's called the single intention, which throughout this, I think I'm just going to call it Gongchik. We talked about, why it's called, why calling it Gongchik might be better. But I'm sure it's not necessarily Professor Sobish's decision to use the English single intention, although it's a technically correct translation. But the Tibetan Gongchik, has so many other implications and nuances. So better to keep it, just call it Gongchik. So I believe this is being recorded. So later, if you all need the recording, you can request it from Jasper. I believe this is being recorded. So Professor Sobish, so far the sections that we've read up to this point have already given us some very key things, including the foreword that His Holiness the Drikung wrote for this book, has already given us some very key guidelines on how we should read this text, how we should receive these teachings. So here, we have arrived at the section where Sobish is introducing to us some of the names that we are going to come across a lot throughout this book. So, of course, Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon. That's one name. Kyobpa means Lord Protector. Kyobpa. So sometimes he is called Drikung Kyobpa. So this term Kyobpa just means Lord Protector. But it is so closely associated with him so that other authors in Tibetan tradition, when they refer to him, they just call him Drikung Kyobpa. So it's so much associated with Jigten Sumgon. So Drikung Kagyu people, we say Kyobpa Rinpoche. Kyobpa Rinpoche. So Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon is one name. And this book has a good biography of him, which we're going to look at starting today. Then the second name is Sherab Jungne. Sherab Jungne. Sherab Jungne is, he was, as I explained yesterday, he was like Ananda to the Buddha. So Sherab Jungne is like Jigten Sumgon's Ananda. So Ananda was Buddha's close relative, Buddha's cousin. In this case, Sherab Jungne was Jigten Sumgon's nephew. But like Ananda, he received all the teachings that the Buddha, he received all the teachings that Jigten Sumgon gave. So much so that even when Sherab Jungne was fairly young in his 20s, Jigten Sumgon already appointed him to represent him when giving teachings. So Kyobpa Rinpoche would, it says, later we will see, but something like Kyobpa Rinpoche would sometimes give teachings himself, and then halfway, if he's tired or if he just wants to see, how well Sherab Jungne understood, Kyobpa Rinpoche would start giving teachings, and then it says, in the text, he will just look at Sherab Jungne midway in the middle, and he'll stop and he'll look at Sherab Jungne. Then Sherab Jungne will continue giving those teachings, and it will be exactly what Jigten Sumgon would have said. So the significance here is Sherab Jungne is the one who compiled Gongchik. Gongchik basically consists of about close to 200 Vajra statements. So Sherab Jungne compiled these close to 200 Vajra statements. Then two more names are given, although we know very little about the history of these two people. One of them was a disciple of Sherab Jungne, and the other one is the brother of Sherab Jungne. The disciple is called Dorje Sherab, and the brother is called Rinchen Changchup. Why their names? Why we need to know their names? Because both of them wrote the oldest commentaries that we have of these Vajra statements. So both of them received teachings from Sherab Jungne and then wrote commentaries. So their commentary, the one by Dorje Sherab, is known as Dorshema. Dorshema. So you see, it's a contraction of his name, Dorje Sherab, Dorshema. The other one is known as Rinjangma. Rinchen Changchup, Rinjangma. So this book that Sobish has produced now, he worked on it for almost 20 years. They contain excerpts from Dorshema and Rinjangma. They contain excerpts. Not complete translations of Dorshema and Rinjangma, but I hope within my lifetime, those two translations can be produced. Yeah, I hope so. But there is one complete commentary produced in this volume here, which is a commentary written about 200 years later. About 200 years later. And that commentary is by Chokyi Drakpa. Chokyi Drakpa. Chokyi Drakpa's commentary relies heavily on the Dorshema and the Rinjangma. So that's the last name that you need to know. Chokyi Drakpa, called Rigzin Chokyi Drakpa. Rigzin Chokyi Drakpa. Rigzin Chokyi Drakpa was the first Chongsang Rinpoche. The first Chongsang Rinpoche. He was like a polyglot, like a Renaissance man. He was an expert in so many different things. So much so that he has a name, he has a title. He's called Gongchik, meaning all-knowing. It means he knows so many things. He has a system of medicine, he has a system of astrology, and ritual, and this and that. You know, he's a real important figure. But he lived about 200 years, 200-300 years after the time of Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon. So now we look at the biography of Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon. So this is good, you know, for those, if we do the Lama Chopa is Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon's Lama Chopa. The Guru Puja is Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon's Guru Puja. So we'll get to know a little bit about Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon. So page 3, before we look at the biography, just quickly, you see in the middle, in the first full paragraph on page 3, Sobish said, some modern researchers portray Jigten Sumgon as politically ambitious. However, the religious sources paint a picture of someone who tried to support, build, or protect the troubled Kagyu monasteries or temples, such as Gampo. Gampo was the original monastery of Gampopa. That's why it's called Gampopa. His monastery is Gampo. And Pamodru, which is Pamodrupa's monastery, and Kyobpa Rinpoche's teacher. As well as Samye. Jigten Sumgon, Kyobpa Rinpoche also rebuilt Samye, the first monastery in Tibet. Or to prevent their structural decay. His far-reaching connections to the Tangut Empire and China definitely require further research. And so we are also told that he was so influential, like even far in the east, in China, in Tangut, his influence was strong there. So now, the section on Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon. The biography of Jigten Sumgon is one of the most remarkable works of its genre. And this has been translated into English. The footnote gives you the information. The colophon means at the end of a text, the notes telling you who wrote it, where it was written, that's called the colophon. The colophon mentions that Sherab Jungne composed it during the summer following his uncle's death in 1217 and presented it to the Sangha for approval. We may assume that he included not only his late uncle's own narrations, so not only what Kyobpa Rinpoche told him, but also those of the more senior disciples. The biography is remarkable in that it captures not only the traditional elements of the biography of a saint, meaning his path to becoming a Buddha, but also his life as an ordinary person with all his shortcomings and flaws. And then Professor Sobish says, and this is like also the Milarepa biography that also presents all his flaws and his mistakes. But then Milarepa's biography was composed actually a few hundred years after his death, whereas this biography was composed a few months, in that summer after Jigten Sumgon passed away. And also, Jigten Sumgon's biography is unusual also because it's very explicit about the mistakes that he made, and he admitted to, and he told his students, I made this mistake, I made that mistake. So it's like a very honest biography. In other biographies of great figures of Tibetan Buddhism, usually written by the students later, the teachers are all perfect, no faults. But in this biography, Sobish has read a lot of religious biographies of Tibetans. He's a scholar not just in this Drikung material. And as I said the other day, he published one of his main books that he published is on the Sakyapa tradition, often seen as the rival of Drikung tradition. But Sobish is also an expert in that tradition. So when Sobish tells us, this is remarkable, then, it's really, that Jigten Sumgon's earliest biography is very remarkable. Different from that book, actually, that Larry is holding up on the screen, that is another composition. This scintillation, if you look at the footnote on page 3, scintillation of the precious Vajra. I think scintillation is an unfortunate English choice. But these are done by Germans who are fluent in English. But some of the, I don't know, some of the nuances, I think scintillation is a little... Anyway, my samsaric mind, sorry. So anyway, page 4 now. In other words, this biography, Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon's biography by Sherab Jungme, appears to be a natural account of a real person's struggle with his demons, which the reader is able to witness, which a reader is able to see clearly. No dressing up to make him look better. Very honest. Like countless other biographies of Tibetan Lamas, Jigten Sumgon's life story begins with the recapitulation of his previous birth. So this biography does give what Sherab Jungme believed to be the past lives of Jigten Sumgon. The most astounding of these past lives is his formal birth as the renowned Indian Acharya Nagarjuna. So we believe that Kyobpa Rinpoche was actually the reincarnation of Nagarjuna. And this is found in prophecies, in the sutras and tantras, and confirmed by statements of the first Karmapa Dusung Khenpa and the Kashmiri Mahapandita Shakya Sri Bhadra. Shakya Sri Bhadra was the main teacher of Sakya Pandita. Again, Sakya Pandita was someone who objected to Jigten Sumgon's Gongchik. But anyway, Sakya Pandita's teacher also said Jigten Sumgon was Nagarjuna. However, this identification is astounding only at first glance. Here, I think Sobish is saying that, you might be surprised that Jigten Sumgon is said to be reincarnation of Nagarjuna. And if you are surprised, it's only because you have maybe an inaccurate understanding of Nagarjuna. See, these days, especially in the West, Nagarjuna is very well known because he is considered such a great philosopher, such a great Buddhist philosopher, particularly Mahayana philosopher, that he was such like a philosophy guy, basically, right? But then Jigten Sumgon, is not a philosophy person. So this is what he means by, you might be astounded or surprised. What? Jigten Sumgon is like reincarnation of Nagarjuna? You mean the Nagarjuna who taught Madhyamaka? And if you know Madhyamaka, you're like, wow, Madhyamaka is so, so deep philosophy, But then Jigten Sumgon, don't seem to care that much about this kind of philosophy. How come he is reincarnation? So here, Sobish offers his opinion. Although Jigten Sumgon did not study or teach in the manner of a Buddhist scholar, that like the great Sakya Pandita, in his teachings, he intentionally and consistently, in his as in Jigten Sumgon's teachings, he intentionally and consistently maintained no philosophical view and grasped no meditative experience as real, thereby avoiding being, quote, bound by the fetters of grasping as real and attachment to truth. And this is Nagarjuna's position. The footnote tells us, Nagarjuna wrote, if I had any proposition, this defect would be mine. I have, however, no proposition. Meaning, I do not hold any views. Moreover, like Nagarjuna, Jigten Sumgon was held to be a master of dependent origination. That Jigten Sumgon understood interdependence, completely. In the same way that Nagarjuna is said to understand interdependence completely. So much so, the great Nyingma master who lived in the 19th, 20th century, Mipham, wrote this praise of Jigten Sumgon, which we do in our dedication prayer. Sheja kunzi kunkien choki je tendre nela wanto Drikung rinchen pyagi tempa shitebar shedrup tosam gumpe zingyur chik. This is the in our dedication prayers that we do. We do this prayer, Sheja kunzi kunkien choki je, at the very end of dedication, which is praying for the flourish and the growth of Jigten Sumgon's tradition. So the words here, this great Nyingma master wrote, may the teaching of the glorious Ratna, the omniscient, the all-knowing Dharma Lord who perceive all knowledge objects, the Drikung who has mastered the vital points of dependent origination, endure until the end of existence, being taught and accomplished through the activities of listening, reflecting, and meditating. So Mipham Rinpoche wrote this prayer for the flourishing of Jigten Sumgon's teachings, where he talked about Jigten Sumgon as knowing all the key points of dependent origination, because he has seen all objects of knowledge, or here called knowledge objects, meaning he has seen and understood every single thing. That is another way of saying he is Buddha, a Buddha. He is awake. So continuing here. However, before he became such a praiseworthy master, he experienced many hardships. After a more or less carefree childhood, he was sent as a youth to attend his uncle, Khenpo Dharma. Times were tough, and famine and poverty took their toll. Before he was 18, he lost his parents and his uncle, lost them to famine. It said that his father had to sell off his Dharma items in order to feed the family. But famine was so bad that both uncle and parents died. He gained renown as a successful performer of religious services, of pujas, but became displeased at the increasing demand for his skills and the responsibilities associated with this role. So even though his pujas gained reputation as being very effective, in the end, he didn't really want to do this. So this is good for us, to keep in mind. Even, like if you are very good, your pujas, the prayers that you do for others, people say, oh, they're so good, so great. This can become an obstacle. And Jigten Sumgon recognized that obstacle early, and he said, no, I need to really practice to become awake. So at age 22, he entered a retreat for about 3 years to concentrate on the practice of Mahamudra and Vajrayogini. So even before he trained with Pamodrupa, he was already practicing Mahamudra and Vajrayogini. He received instructions on that already. As a result of this retreat, he became highly skilled in healing the sick. So his reputation after the retreat even became stronger. He achieved some results so that he could heal the sick. These events took place approximately between 1165 and 1168. Another result of his practice was his development of magical powers. However, when a thief died soon after trying to steal his provisions, so there's a story, an incident where a thief tried to steal from Jigten Sumgon. Jigten Sumgon understood the great danger inherent in the display of such powers. He said, now, whenever someone dies who is in dispute with one of my donors, it will be said, see, that is his magical power. And it easily happens that the reputation of having magical powers becomes an obstacle in life. So there were incidences, right, of people either trying to steal from Jigten Sumgon or trying to harm the students, the patrons of Jigten Sumgon, and then kind of bad things happen to these people. And when this is not saying that Jigten Sumgon did anything bad, but that, things were happening in this way. And so he became very concerned. He said, oh, I need to have less contact with people so that this reputation don't keep growing. Then people will fear me. Then when people fear him, then people will also find ways to further harm him. So he said, no, this can be such an obstacle. In 1168, at 25, he heard about a guru called Pamodrupa. The mere sound of this name, quote, stirred his mind that like the leaves of the Keshuka tree trembling in the wind, unquote. As in biographies of other lamas, the strong emotional response indicates a connection between disciple and master from previous lifetimes. So this is typical, many stories like this. Oh, the minute he heard that name of the teacher, tears came to his eyes and all that. I can tell you, with my teachers, with me and those who became over time clearly my teachers, I never have experiences like this. In fact, with my teachers, is mostly, looking back, it's just like first encounter, first meeting is just like, okay. It's just like, okay, well, good enough. But I can also say, then eventually it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. And I have no doubts, at least this lifetime, my connection is with Drikung. I never chose. It all happens circumstantially. So I never chose, as in this lifetime, I never said, I want to be Drikung. No. It's just what kept coming in my direction. And I also never chased after it. But I learned to recognize, what the signs are. I never really say I want to be the student of this person or that person. Oh, I want to be this tradition or that tradition. No, just whatever came my way. And then and actually a lot of other things also came my way. I'm not saying that only Drikung. Other traditions, other lineage, especially in the West, you get so many lamas, rinpoches, holinesses that will come through, and you can attend these empowerments. I did. But what kept becoming stronger and stronger is Drikung, and it's with a particular set of teachers within the Drikung that it became clearer and clearer and clearer. So I don't have the kind of karma that these masters have, tears in the eye, just hearing the name. My negative karma instead is such that, I hear this name or I meet this, and I'm like, yeah, I guess. Which is to say, don't give up hope. If you say, oh, I don't have that feeling, first time I met this teacher, I was crying, or I have dreams, it can happen in so many ways. It can happen in so many ways. Yeah. So anyway, coming back on page 5, it also helps to explain that a person who breaks through to Buddhahood in this lifetime is able to do so through his prior accumulation of a vast account of merit and gnosis. Gnosis is Sobish's preferred English word for share up, or for yeshe in Tibetan, which is jnana, spelled Jnana in Sanskrit, pronounced as jnana. So often you will find other translators using primordial wisdom. But he is using gnosis, so just so you know. Gnosis is from the Greek. You can Google that and see what it tells you, the etymology of gnosis. Yeah? So anyway, it also helps to explain that a person who breaks through to Buddhahood in this lifetime is able to do so because of prior accumulation of a vast amount of merit and gnosis. So the technical term for this is karmic residue. In other words, karma, So all of us, I think have accumulated a lot of karma in the form of merit and gnosis. When we say accumulated karma, it's not just, negative karma. There's also positive karma. So positive karma is the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of gnosis. So pause. Comments, questions up until this point. Thoughts, Don't be shy. We're now one big network of people from all over the world, different time zones.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
Yeah, just now you mentioned recognizing the sign.
Yeah, continue. Yes.
Yeah, how to do that?
Recognizing what signs?
You talk about your connection with Qigong.
Oh, sign, I don't mean like, magic signs. All I mean is just eventually it will come in your heart, like, oh, this is it, And this is it. When I say it, right? I mean, you know me. I don't mean, oh, nothing else, I continue to learn. It's just my style, and I can say I have capacity, and some of you have that capacity. Now maybe a little bit out of pride, but mostly not. I can say, I have capacity to absorb a lot of things. So I continue to learn, But now I can also see how when I'm learned from other traditions, I'm now all learning through my filter, which is, I would say, very much that filter is uh, uh, based on Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon's understanding.
Thus, it's important to develop such filter, right?
Yes, it is important, I think, to have this filter. Otherwise, it's just random learning from so many things. Then not very helpful.
Because
Go ahead.
Go, keep going.
No, because quite often it seems like you're criticizing over study, but to me, the studying is a very essential practice to develop such filter.
Yeah, of course, Yeah, of course, I have to criticize studying because too many people have a lot of concepts up in their heads. When suffering comes, don't know what to do. If you don't have that fault, then you don't need to worry about my criticisms. If you have that fault, you need to think about it. You, not just you waiting, anyone who is listening now. And then if you all know me, enough, you will know. Now, not talking politely, not talking humbly or anything like that. I read a lot, nonstop. I know a lot of things. Yes, I do, really. I also know the traps of knowing a lot of things. I also know the traps of knowing a lot of things. I can tell you, and I don't want to say this this is just to make this point, I know a lot of things. I continue to study a lot of things, but also it's clear in my mind what my filter is now. Filter is not, even Drikung, right? When we say Drikung can mean a lot of things, but fundamentally, I see it's not out of any planning, over time it builds up. Now I see very clearly this is a filter based on Jigten Sumgon's. Now I cannot say that I have 100%, Jigten Sumgon, because there's still things to. If it's 100%, then I will achieve the state of Jigten Sumgon. I'll achieve Kyobpa Rinpoche's result. Oh, far from in that sense, right? But yeah, so yeah, I read a lot, I study a lot, but what I want to say is that there's an endless amount to read and to study. If you keep just wanting to get more information, and you don't know what to do with that information, it can become an obstacle. Yeah, it can become an obstacle. Then we mistake the menu for the meal. Then when we're hungry, we try to eat the menu. Then not very useful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, like I continue to study. I know a lot of things. Sometimes useful, sometimes, So when I, like in the last 10 years, you're seeing me talk more and more about the importance of taking into heart and the dangers of, continuously trying to know more, to know more, to know more. Prior to these 10 years, if you have recordings of my teachings, you'll see me saying, study more, study more, study more, study more, But we change, because we begin to see more and more what is more needed. And the effects of telling people to study more, analyze more, that can lead to a lifetime of learning. And then when suffering turns up, we don't know what to do. So we have already passed 11 for today, so we're going to stop here. But you have a few pages, to read now, if you don't have the whole book yet. And please read, so that tomorrow when we continue, I don't have to go line by line. We can just say, okay, this paragraph, anything you all want to say, you all want to ask, you all want to clarify, what you find interesting, what you find strange, really, this is how we can learn. I know a lot of things, but I don't know yet your mind. So I don't know, what reaction you have when you read. So I know a lot of information, This is from accumulating from reading. Next step, I need to know how to read minds. That comes from practice and realization. That power is very, very weak. Not non-existent. That's how weak it is. So you have to say, so this is our study group. You have to say, oh, this part I find inspiring, or this part I find, I don't know, it's a little hard to appreciate, or, this is why Zoom is so useful. So anyway, Tashi Dele. And at the end, we do the dedication that is given in Shantideva.